I think everything is functional now.
Oh my god.
Okay.
Just don't touch it.
Yeah.
See,
You don't need to touch anything to record, right?
Nah.
Nah. It's fine.
yeah, it's fine.
What am I mad at in WoW this week?
3, 2, 1.
Oh shit. The way that you said that, I hope you're recording.
Oh, I'm recording.
Oh, okay.
I don't have anything.
The way that you said that made me think that there is something,
No,
major going
it's
on.
it's WoW. So I mean, what aren't you mad about?
Uh,
So anyway, welcome back to another episode of Server Restart In. It's a weekly World of Warcraft podcast hosted by three opinionated players who like to get together to discuss their thoughts about the current state of the game. Some of them like to be angry. My name Jim. I'm joined by Kristen
Hi.
and Brian.
Hello.
Brian's the angry one.
I was gonna say.
No, there really hasn't been a lot that's gone on in the current live version of the game. The only thing that's really of note to me is that they made some changes to the Love Rocket drop.
Yeah, okay, so I was confused. I have been way off the train. I will admit, I have not even been on WoW probably in close to a week, to play.
Yeah.
But what's the deal initially with that? Because I did read about that.
So
Was it just dropping for everybody whenever
No.
it started?
no, I'm not sure. I don't know if there was
Didn't drop for me.
the change they made was that on the first box of chocolate that you get, the first loot box that you get on your account for that day has a higher drop rate. So meaning that the drop rate is increased for the first heart-shaped box that you open. So it means that doing it at least once a day still is a net higher chance than, I guess the other ones are still kind of like a low rate.
The other one is still a pretty low rate. It's not like
it is
99% chance, still
Well, yeah,
pretty low rate.
apparently it was a greatly increased chance. Now,
yeah.
greatly increased is subjective. If they increased it by 10%, that's kind of a lot, but I don't know what the drop chance is, and it still does. There's no bad luck protection on it. There's no, you know what I mean? It's like you're still rolling the dice on that first box. So if you have a really bad streak of luck, it doesn't matter whether you do 60 characters a day or 1 character a day. There's still the potential to not receive it this go around.
I mean, how many people have not received it? It's so frustrating.
It's one of those things that they don't want it to be guaranteed because they still want it to have, some drive to get it,
It doesn't even look that good. That's the thing that's
it's not about how it looks.
It is.
It's just about having it in your mount count.
That is ridiculous.
But, and it's just like, at least they didn't just leave it the way it was. It's like increasing the first chance of the day to get it isn't bad, and it at least increases your odds, and it's like the odds may not always be in your favor, kind of thing, but at least it's a fighting chance as opposed to before it felt like it's like invincible, right? Like the drop rate on that thing is, it took me years to get that. I got that last year, so that's like 14 years of on and off farming it like all the fucking time.
That's crazy.
It is.
Yeah.
You know, and I mean, I've been doing the Love Rocket stuff is, you know, probably, I mean, I do it every year, and so it's been about as long as that too. I'm not sure when it actually was introduced. Probably when the holiday was introduced would be my guess. But so I mean, that's another 14 years of it. Not now. It's a lot harder to grind because you only have like 2 weeks or something like that to work at it. But it's, at least they're starting to address some of these ones that, you know, shouldn't be maybe as rare as they are. So I mean, any change they make to increase the drop rate is a positive. It's a net positive because they could have just done nothing. So,
I mean, that really isn't great. They could have just done nothing. Like,
again, it's if
Think
you just
about
if
that.
you give it away, if you just give it to people, then there's no sense of accomplishment
No.
and all this stuff, and it doesn't hit
Okay.
the dopamine centers of the brain.
It's accomplishment, right? It's luck. It's not an accomplishment. It is not something that you are going and you are, oh my God, I killed this really hard boss, or I did that. It's not an accomplishment. It is it is
Right.
luck.
Yeah.
Isn't it an accomplishment to have good luck?
Yes.
No, it's luck.
I mean, it shows that you at least ran it once.
Oh, that's awesome. That's great. Ah,
It's funny because it's just the core. It's like the core problem of mounts in general.
RNG.
Well, mounts that are RNG, yes, yeah.
Yeah.
It's one thing that like you complete the, you know, the rate of the season BS and get a mount out of it or something like that, but or even the ones that drop at the end of a raid or dungeon or something like that. Like, yeah, absolutely. But the RNG ones, like, you know,
Yeah.
if they meant for them to be RNG to RNG,
And-
what's the point?
And I don't even mind the ones, right? So the current tier ones that drop mounts, right? I don't even mind that once the tier is over, they go to RNG. Whatever. That is a perk of being in a guild that can do, or going and farming it with, you know, randoms or whatever, that can do that content, right? So it's a guaranteed drop. That's great. That's awesome. You know, I wish it was just like that all the time. If you kill the boss, you get, you know, but obviously that is my idea of a perfect world, and that is not going to happen. But that's fine. I don't mind that it becomes, you know, a drop chance rate. The problem I have is how low the drop chance rates are. Because all it does is, if you are determined to get that one particular amount, all it's doing is keeping you paying your subscription for longer. And it's a thinly veiled way to keep you giving them money.
If there's,
And,
well,
you know,
it's not even just about the money, right? If you don't have something if you don't have goals in the game, you don't play the game, right? So then you get into these cycles of where, well, new dungeons are out, new raids are out, people play, and then stop, and then wait for new content. It's a way to allow people that want to keep playing the game and have something. It's just goal orientation. Now, it should be, you know, make the goals to a point where, you know, they feel achievable, which, you know, some of that stuff doesn't feel quite that way with low drop rates.
Well, that's what, like, the core issue really is, like, you know, do you have surprises in a game, right? Because in the end, how close is it really aligned with a problem such as the loot box scenario, right? The whole point is that you gamble for something and you might get something crazy and wild, right? Like the good old days of opening up magic cards or whatever CCG you play. And you always, you're guaranteed something, not specifically, but you're guaranteed a level of something, right? But then you get into a world like this where, like, depending on which side of the pendulum you want to swing, the arcadey versus arcadey casual versus persistent, I wouldn't even call it hardcore, but you get given a world where there could always be surprises. Do you actually want to know what the chances are for those things to be?
No.
The problem with this scenario specifically, I agree, I don't.
Yeah.
But this problem specifically is that they created a holiday and they put some shit behind it. And like every other one of them, they have the extra special shit you might not get.
Yeah.
And that's frustrating because you can only have a chance to get it once a year, right?
Yeah.
And so, honestly, like, get rid of that part.
Well, here's the thing too, right? What if it's something that may end up on the trading post in the future?
I mean, that's fine, but as of right now, it's like they're creating forced scarcity with the,
They're not creating it because it's already been in there. They created it.
Sure.
And it's like, and what they've done is they've reduced the scarcity of it by increasing the drop chance. So they have put in a way to increase the number of mounts in the game for that.
Here,
mount.
let me fix it with one easy fix.
I don't know if I trust you.
You ready?
No.
Mm-hmm. I'm ready.
I think he froze.
Oh, no.
Oh, no. We lost Brian.
Oh, no. Oh, my God. I was waiting for the fix. Brian, how could you do this?
I'm waiting for him to come back. Oh, no. And Brian has left the call. So now we are left to wait. Oh, and Brian's back.
Oh.
Brian
left us on tenterhooks.
Yeah, you left. You froze. You said, "Are you ready? Are you ready?" And then you just went like that.
That was it.
And I'm like, "Is he moving? Is he breathing?"
Wait, was
like,
that a
Discord
dramatic
blew
pause?
up on me. I don't know.
That's a hell of a dramatic pause. Wait to leave everybody wanting.
Yeah, no, it was good. Jeez. Have every one of those things a small chance to drop in the world.
From where?
Because I don't know about you, but like in the scenario where I randomly get something I was never expecting in the world, right?
That is cool. Yeah.
That's pretty crazy.
You just put it as a super low chance on everything's loot table.
On everything.
Yeah.
On everything.
Let me tell you, I remember being, during vanilla, grinding those stupid gorillas in Stranglethorn Vale to hit level 40 on my paladin, and I got an epic drop rate, or epic sword, just a world drop.
Although they've added some of that, like I guess in the near expansions, but like it's just not as epic as it used to be for sure.
And it felt
like
amazing.
Tar and Icebreaker, you remember that? The Tar and Icebreaker was like a level 52 epic mace or whatever.
Yeah.
But it dropped on like everything in the world.
Yeah, it was
at that
amazing.
level.
So it's like you go out in the world and all of a sudden you're just like, oh, dang. You're either a couple, 100 gold richer, or, you have a nice new shiny epic weapon that you can use. Twinks helped that along because...
the only thing I can see with that being a problem is people's botting and finding a farming area and just constantly killing the same things over, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously, like, not... Like, it would have to be, like, on everything. It just couldn't be...
No, I know it would be on everything.
Don't make it BOE. Make it bind on account.
That's true.
Boom.
They are all anyway, so I guess that's not an issue then.
I mean, they used to be bind on equip. There were some BOPs and some BOEs, but just make them bind on account, and then you can use it, and then you take that out of the equation.
Were there mounts that were BOE?
No, I'm not talking about mounts. I'm talking about just regular.
Yeah, the items
but
is fine.
Yes,
I'm more so the mount suggestion, right?
Sure.
I think that since they're BOP, that's not the farming thing scenario doesn't
Right. I was
matter.
talking about specifically, yeah.
But
not
at that point,
mounts.
like at least you can weed out like botting and stuff like that. Like if that's a problem to address, at least the low drop rate is just going to be there regardless. So
Yeah. I mean, you can do that too with like cool cosmetics and stuff like that. And
Yeah.
no, I think that's probably a good thing, a good suggestion. I
Ship
don't
it.
know.
It's a good suggestion.
let's ship it.
Yep. Clip it and ship
I
it.
mean, when you really think about it, like, why not?
Yeah.
But it needs to be like insanely low. I say insanely low to the point where, like, you know, you just won't be going after it, right? It shouldn't be a
Right.
thing
It's
that you
something
go
that
after
you-
because it's
yes.
there.
It's not something well,
It's
see,
like
the problem with that though is they put these specific things in, and you know, I think it's maybe too late for some of these. Like they couldn't be like super like ultra rare at this point. I think that they would maybe.
Oh no, this would be like I would supplement it, right?
Like
And
with
so like
new
the higher
items, yeah.
No, well, I'd say the higher drop chance is when the holiday happens, but it's always there, right? And so like you never create this false sense of like
I could
you know,
see that.
Oh, yeah, I have to do it during this time.
The mounts that drop on a mythic raid boss, no,
No,
I wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah,
because
yeah,
they're
yeah.
guaranteed a drop of some sort, right? It's these random,
Yes.
you know, the Stone Drake and Cataclysm, you know, those types of things that just have a random like, oh, you got to run it for 10 years to get a chance,
Yeah.
a real chance to get it. You know, and I guess Invincible is, well, one, you can't see it, but two, like, that's a little bit more difficult to talk about, I suppose. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's
I think something that's not a guaranteed drop, that's never been a guaranteed drop, should like you said, like Invincible is a good example, right? You should have a higher chance of getting it from the Lich King, doing the Lich King, than in the world, but there could be that very, 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 very random slight chance.
you killed the gorilla in on Gorilla Island in Stranglethorn Vale, and it just so happens that he defeated the Lich King and had Invisible.
Yeah. And it was in his
And then
bags.
you got it from him.
It was in his bags the
Right?
whole time and he couldn't see it.
Yeah.
Yep.
He doesn't know where he got it from. He didn't know he had it. He didn't have an add-on to tell him that he got the reins.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. Oh
man.
God.
No, I mean honestly, like they could solve a lot of problems with that one swift change.
And
It's not bad.
I agree. I think that you touched on something briefly when you said that we shouldn't know about all of those drop rates. And I agree.
That's the problem with the data mining.
As wonderful.
Well, it's not even data mining, really. Like if you pull enough like
people
drop
just
add-on
pulling
measurements,
stats,
you can measure it anyway.
Yeah.
So
But I am more specifically talking about like the data mining and stuff like that.
Yeah.
WoW was subjectively, this is just my opinion, much more fun when I didn't know what was going on.
I'm gonna say that's subjective. If you don't know the internal mechanics of the game and you don't know how to theory craft, or you can't theory craft and you can't determine, you know, stat weights and all that other fucking stuff, and you can't, you know, mine and see where the best loot is and all that stuff, you just have to kind of go do it. If they took all that stuff out and they just said, go out into the world, find
Explore.
stuff. Some enemies will have more powerful things that you can get, you know, and obviously dungeons and raids reward you. That's a better game. Yeah. It is a better game than having...
It definitely would not fit the model of WoW right now.
No.
Absolutely
it fit
not.
the model a long time ago for sure.
Yes.
Yeah, well, that's what it was when it started, but people don't want that anymore because they suck.
Yeah, and it was more fun. Well, and so the problem is, now we all go to Wowhead on patch day, or we do PTR, or we...
I just logged into the podcast called Server Restarting. Podcast for three opinionated players.
We do all of that stuff to find out, okay, what is our roadmap for this patch.
Yeah, no, you predict
what
everything in the game at this
do
point. Like,
for this patch? Okay, I'm going to go farm this. I'm going to go get this. I'm going to go do this instead of doing it organically. And that might be good for some people, I guess, who like to plan that stuff out, who have less time. I'm one of them now, or less desire to log into the game. So they like to have their goal. I like goals too. I like to have, but I don't think it makes it a better game. I don't think knowing all of that stuff.
It for sure does not make it a better game.
It's a different game.
It's almost like it's more oriented towards a solo player experience when you have a situation like that.
Which
I
don't mind that. I don't mind things.
Oh no! Don't get me wrong. I love that aspect.
Yeah.
However, like it becomes so overly predictable that it kind of removes the immersion of an RPG in general.
You know what it is? It's a fantasy RPG first-person shooter type game.
Well, the thing is, I think with MMOs before, right? They used to be, it was focused on group content. Your whole point was to be in a group and do things, right? And, it has slid away from that, which I don't think is a bad thing because I like putting on YouTube videos or listening to a podcast or listening to music and going and grinding. I enjoy grinding. I used to really enjoy it, and it's less so now because my time is more constricted. But I still enjoy that aspect of it, of just going out in the world and just farming something or doing something by myself. I don't have to worry about interacting with other players. I run around, I get distracted in the world. Oh, I see a flower. Oh, I see this, I see that. I can go and get it, and I don't have to worry about when Jim and I go together and we're doing something, and I'm like, oh, wait, go northwest a little bit. There's a flower there, and he's got to land because
looking for 2 more to pluck this flower.
Yeah, So wait, let me finish. So I don't mind that games are going more towards the solo with group content being optional, right? So the optional part is you can do dungeons or you don't have to do dungeons. You can just do stuff out in the world and get gear that way. Not the gear that you need to do, dungeons and raids with, but just regular gear. I don't mind that. I like that they make it more optional. Final Fantasy is doing the same thing where they're making their main story pretty much all soloable. They have things called trusts where you can go into dungeons by yourself with support of NPCs for the main story. So you can just get through the entire story without even having interacted with somebody, And that's fine. If, sometimes I just feel like going into a dungeon and I don't feel like having to deal with people. I'm like, I want to practice my rotation. I want to practice, where to stand as a DPS, how to resolve certain mechanics as a DPS or as a healer or as a tank. So I like that. And I wish that WoW would implement something like that because it would be really cool to and they did sort of. They started it when they had the in Mists where you went in and you did the
scenarios.
Where you went and did the proven healer and proven tank and proven DPS. Where you went and did that.
Trials.
The trials, yeah. They had those, and I liked those very much. Now, they were very specific scenarios, and it didn't, translate into a specific dungeon. It was just like, oh, how do you handle an AoE pull? How do you handle interrupting? How do you handle this and that? And that was great. I wish they would go further than just having it in that one round circular room, and they gave you NPCs that you could go into a dungeon with and practice doing that stuff with. And maybe even if they were feeling, like spicy, make a couple of different scenarios of that, like where you could pick, okay, I want an ideal group. This is the AI is on point. right? Or I want a not so great group. I want people who don't hit interrupts all the time. I want people who maybe stand in the fire sometimes, people who take unavoidable damage, because I want to challenge myself.
Everybody takes unavoidable damage.
Yeah. You could argue that you could just do that with players, but you don't necessarily want to do that with players because, especially if you're a healer, players get mad at you when they stand in avoidable damage and you don't heal them through it. It's just, it's not my fault. It's the healer. They didn't heal me. Dude, you took a cleave that you didn't need to take,
I think saying that back in the beginning that, WoW is focused on group content and all that stuff. It's like, I don't think that's necessarily the case. I think that you could do it. There were certain things that required more people to do because they were more difficult. And I think that that's kind of the way it should be. There should be paths to do stuff by yourself, and that difficult content should require more people, however that is, whether it's NPC or AI or whether it's players, and that rewards better things, right? Because the more difficult the challenge, the greater the risk, greater the reward, right? And I think that
sure, but you could have a really difficult thing with one person.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Like, one person can go in and solo a dungeon, and that's a pretty difficult thing, Yeah. So, it has nothing to do with the number of players, what makes the content difficult. It's just the content being difficult.
Right, but difficult content, like dungeons and raids, when it's level appropriate and all that stuff,
sure,
requires multiple players.
But think about, like, the number of times you've gone in. Now, sure, when you've outgeared stuff, it's much easier. But there are plenty of people who go in same current level expansions and solo shit.
And the only reason
you tell me that is not difficult content.
I'm not saying it's not difficult content. That I don't understand how you're saying that.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that that's not difficult. I just don't think that the general people you're taking. Like,
well, I guess I'm taking group content and making it solo, and that, yeah.
Yeah, and it's like, maybe have a solo version of something similar to that. Yeah, but I think if you have a path where, players can progress solo and still achieve, similar power levels, it's fine. But I think that, group content, or it should be more difficult because, that's the whole concept, right? Is it requires 5 people or 10 people to do a dungeon or
30
raid.
people.
Or 30 people or 40, back in the day. Yeah, it's like whatever. And the rewards from there are better rewards because the content is geared towards such that it requires more people working together.
Mm-hmm.
One, which trying to get people to work together
Mm-hmm.
is very difficult. I think the thing is that when MMOs first came out, they were very, very, very much rooted in the old RPG concepts, of like Dungeons and Dragons and stuff like that, right? They were trying to basically recreate a fantasy world where you could go and have those kind of experiences, whether you're doing you're off doing your own side quests, because you can do solo D&D play, which is really weird, but it's possible.
I don't know that that's really weird. I think that would be cool.
You can. There are ways to do it, and it's fine, but, the main allure of Dungeons and Dragons and games like that, like the tabletop RPGs, is being with a group of like-minded individuals and having fun, because they can do random crazy things that you wouldn't have thought of, right? And it's getting that kind of interaction. And it's the same thing with, WoW back in the day. It's like, you had a bunch of people that were like-minded. They were freaking fantasy nerds, and they get in there and they're like, I really like this. And it's like, I'm going to be a tank, and like they're picking these roles and these classes that fit like their personalities. And it's like, now it's like people don't pick a class for the like the class lore. You know what I mean? Like the RPG elements have kind of, they exist. The stories are there. The content is there. The class identity stuff is there and all that stuff. They're different, but people aren't picking it. Not everybody. I mean, there are still people that come in and it's like, I want to be this because I really like this. Like new players do that, right? They come in, they look at all this stuff and go, oh yeah, I'd really like to be a rogue. Or I think a priest would be, I really want to play a priest, or something like that. They look at these things and they go, that's really cool. I identify with that. I want to do that. But people that have been playing forever, or people that come in with these like esport mentalities that, whatever.
They just flip characters around.
They look at the numbers.
Yeah.
That's why on these world first things, they level a bunch of characters.
Yes.
And whichever one ends up being the best geared, that's the one they take.
Yeah. They
don't have any loyalty to their characters. And that's fine. But to them, it's a job. It's, it's like, and that's why, and with these databases and data mining and add-ons that do all that stuff to, expose the information and determine all these stats or whatever, it allows people to turn it basically into something similar to like EVE Online, right? EVE Online,
right,
the spreadsheet simulator.
Yeah.
And it's just like, it's gotten away from that whole, just like immersing yourself into a fantasy world and just kind of being in it and being like the murder hobo hero kind of thing, and going out and doing stuff. Now it's all about how fast do you get to end game? How fast do you, or do you have the right talents? Do you have the right classes? Do you have the right comps to do this? And it's just like, it takes, it kind of just removes a bit of the fun from it, I think. And and it's just like, I don't like that it does that.
But
I mean, for me.
Right. I was going to say, it removes a bit of the fun for you, but those people really enjoy doing that way, Or maybe they do.
I don't know if they
enjoy
it.
Some of them probably do.
Some
of them do.
Sure, some of them do, but a lot of them, like, I have an ability that I can do this, so I'm going to do this. And, I mean, they make money doing it,
I wish that they would incorporate, do you remember all the abilities we used to have? And they have added some of them back. They got rid of them during the Great Pruning. And
I love how there's an era.
Yeah,
the great pruning.
The Great Pruning. They got rid of them, but then they started giving them back, right? Priests never lost mind vision, which was great. I wish that they would incorporate that stuff into the world and into dungeons. I wish that sometimes they would take into account, what you played, right, when you're doing quest lines, and be like, oh, hey, this is a priest, maybe add an extra option. Now, this is a lot of work, but, oh, hey, maybe mind vision this spot over here to kind of see what's going on, or mind vision this person, right, or far sight over here if you're a shaman, or, go soothe these animals over here, or charm these animals if you're,
A great example of that at the one time that they did do it, and maybe not to the best of, the full extent of that or whatnot, quarter stars.
Yes.
That first boss, you can go poison that vial.
Yep.
If you're an alchemist, and it kills them at 20%.
Yep.
That's fantastic.
Or even the
well, you get the buffs and stuff
yes,
like that when
you're going over to the second boss, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's like, that's a neat little thing. You don't have to do that,
right? But it's
nice. Flavor.
Yeah.
It's a bit of the RPG elements put back into it.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, you could have something. It's like you could fight your way across a bridge, or you could mind control.
Yes.
An NPC and go Like,
unlock a door for you or something,
Yeah,
or a
and something
secret
like-
door or something like that. Yes, exactly.
And like if they could, I mean, and they kind of tried to do some of that stuff. I think there were like some profession based things in Quarter Stars, and I don't know if there's any other places
think
that
they were
had stuff
yeah.
like that. You know, it's like I know they kind of had like the archaeology buffs
Yep.
and stuff like that. But
I mean, they got to make archaeology relevant
that
somehow.
that was in the Cataclysm dungeons. They had like the little
Yes.
bonus quests at the beginning. If you had the tokens and you were for that archaeology thing, you could get a buff for that dungeon.
And they have kind of kept that up too, didn't they? Don't they? Yeah, they have something in the dungeons. Yes, even in these dungeons, he started at the beginning of a dungeon and he was like, "Oh wait, go back." It was like Uldor or something like that, and he was like, "Oh, go back. You can click this thing." Or something.
Okay. So you're talking about the little nodes in Ulduar, which you expose a book and you get a buff,
Yeah,
right?
but it's
That's
not
the-
everybody can expose the book, right?
But you have to be a minor.
Yeah.
And that's the only fucking dungeon that has it.
Oh, I thought there were more.
No.
Okay,
There-
but still, I mean, so they still kind of continued it forward a little bit, right? It just
They did.
wasn't, just not.
Poor
as much.
archaeology. Can we just pour one out for?
Yeah, let me tell you, I
Archaeology.
really enjoyed archaeology. I grinded the F out of that.
This is the perfect fucking expansion for archaeology.
Yeah.
Are you fucking
Didn't
I mean,
it, though?
I
it
get-
really is. Yeah.
I get why there was no archaeology in Shadowlands, right? Sure, but
I don't.
continue on in Dragonflight. I do.
Why not? It's a good
if
way
they
to
could
learn.
have told a deeper lore through it,
Exactly.
I
Yeah.
think they
Yeah.
like it would have been pretty badass.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, sure, Brand's not there, but we could take notes.
Yeah.
I mean,
The
Yeah.
thing is,
it
I
got
think they are on this every 2 year. Is it 2 years now? Every 2 years an expansion cycle. I think that is wrong. I think you
It should
shouldn't
tell
be
the
do
story
that.
that they're
Yes,
trying to do.
I think that you shouldn't be on a set schedule for every 2 years we're going to have a new expansion because that limits you. Because now you can't put in all the things you want to put in because not all that stuff is going to be ready in 2 years. So maybe you go 3 years. Maybe you go 4 years. Maybe there's a 2 year one. Maybe there's a 1.5 year one. You know what I mean? No, there shouldn't be a 1.5 year
it all
one.
depends on the
That's, you know.
content they have, and it all depends.
I think you're like right though. I think that it's funny because I was thinking about this the other day, but like they really should have more of a big change, small change, even if it's yearly, right? And so like imagine the expansions as they are today are big changes, and that happens every 2 years, but like we're always focused on one major thing going on, right?
Mhm.
If they wanted to get closer to that persistent world, why not deliver on stuff like they're doing right now? They're doing very many changes that sit outside of the expansion, arc, right? So why not have parallel stories being told? I think my son mentioned something about like Silvermoon. Do you think they'll ever go back and do Silvermoon and at least get flying there and all that stuff? And I'm like, I don't know, but it'd be interesting to see that like something's evolving there. What a great story to tell as
Yeah.
the minor story arc
Yeah.
for the year, right? So 2023 is the year that of something happening, right? But it's not directly tied to Dragonflight, right? It just
So
is happening at the same
Increasing
time.
the world, like
in-
maybe
well-
helping fix the scar, helping, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Maybe
So-
getting druids and shaman and, you know.
they had the perfect opportunity, because there was the between Shadowlands and Dragonflight little thing where, what's his name, the faction leader for the Blood Elves,
Mhm.
Lorthamar.
Orthamar, and
Lorthamar.
and the night.
Thor. I was gonna say like
Thor.
Thormir, so isn't that fun?
With his hammer.
Like a mix of somebody
Meow,
from Lord of
meow.
the Rings and Thor.
No, but he got married to Elisra,
Yes.
or whatever,
Yeah.
or whatever her
Yes,
name is.
The Nightborn.
Yeah. And so why didn't they just have like a little mini event thing that you could go do? Perfect chance to redo
Yeah,
the
we
city.
got to see Thrall get married.
Yeah, we got to be at his wedding.
Yeah. So, I mean, sure, we might not have as close of a relationship with Lorthamar as we did with Thrall, but still, we could still guess.
It was a good chance to at least update the capital city some, right?
Yeah. Well, here's the thing, though. It's like it's not even
stuff.
just that. It's really more about telling more of a mini expansion, right? It's higher than like this side of hey, by the way, because there's tons of those things.
I know. Well, they kind of did that in Legion with the Exodar, because when we were doing the Naru quest line to go get the crystal that we found and take it to Valen to get information on it, we had to go to the Exodar, fight our way down, clear the bottom of it and all that stuff. And, that's when he killed his son kind of thing. It's like, I mean, they did use it. It's like Silver Moon, I don't think has had its fair share of stuff, but I mean, it's like...
Yeah, what I'm saying is like at a higher level than that, right? At a higher level than that, the actual concept of telling a story that is parallel to the expansion so that there is a major and a minor. And so like every year we have a roadmap of different things going on, right? And we aren't always stuck to like, here's your 5 or 4 dragon riding mounts that you can fly in the expansion. There's certain things that kind of feed into that, right? Like, and yes, you can go back to the old world, because it doesn't have to be the old world. It could just be the other continents that you go back to instead, right?
Yeah.
Right now we go back to a certain context rather than the continent itself.
Yeah.
Which is like the start of Dragonflight, right? Like that, when you go back to the old world, that's kind of where you're going back to. So yeah, I don't know. I think like they have a room to improve and build upon the pattern that they're kind of doing now with releasing mini features to keep people entertained, right? Because there's only so many trading posts that you can add. And I think we already touched on a few weeks ago, or last week or whatever, about how that almost overlaps achievements and stuff like that. And so,
yeah. I think that, that's all good stuff. I mean, I'm not mad about it.
Jim's like, I'm not opposed.
There's 2 recommendations, that we can put on Twitter now. So
put on Twitter.
That's right. I was gonna say, it's like you were talking about, it's like this whole every 2 years new expansion stuff, and it's just it's a shame that it is that way, and it's partly that way because of their seasons, and they are trying to like just keep it.
Sure, and seasons are terrible.
Seasons are terrible.
Well, don't get it wrong though, because look at the amount of content that's in Dragonflight. Like, I don't want them to push real people to produce that level of content in any shorter amount of time.
Right.
I'm not saying
that's definitely not what we want, but I think
Yeah.
the reality is like they need to get to a point where they should be delivering with less is more, right? And be able to build more of that persistent world, right? They have so many loose ends that they could grab onto and go forward with, right? And honestly, like with Gears squashed the way it was, and it's kind of sitting at it's a common level that you could go anywhere and still gear up if that's the problem, right? Whereas before, that was a lot more complicated to do if you added new things in somewhere else.
Right.
So, it's sadly like gear is still like a core concept of driving people to do things to some extent. I think the good thing about transmog really is that it carries over a lot of that weight in a way that it's not affected by that item level number, right? Like, I'm not going to go do this because it's not going to benefit me. Why would I do this? That's not what we want, but we do want to have content that's engaging with a story, perhaps, and see more of the world be improved upon. It's interesting because this is all pretty close to, like, I was watching a podcast by the guy that used to run the Instance podcast for a while. They do a gaming podcast every Thursday night, and they're like this past Thursday night talking about housing in games again. And it's one of those things like, oh man, I want it so bad.
Yeah.
And they're talking about like how nice the one in Final Fantasy is. There's one in
Housing
ESO
is
that's
nice in Final Fantasy.
pretty good.
Yeah.
But it's like, yeah, I would love to see even.
And
what I'm saying is, I'm getting closer to the persistent part of the world topic more than the housing topic.
Yeah.
It's just about doing things right that you're not tethered directly to that item level, which is a unfortunate core concept of this game. It's better in this expansion than it has been in the past, but it's still there.
It is amazing to me that WoW decried gear score back in Wrath and then implemented it into the game. You know what I mean?
Fixed that problem. Kudos for them.
Yeah.
They essentially created a lateral problem to it.
Yeah.
And so, and now it's lived for so long that it's such a unfortunate core part of the game.
Yeah, they incorporated it because you just couldn't get away from it. Because people were going to say, people rated the gear themselves and gave it the score, which is, so I don't know who these people were and what their authority on the topic was, but it was probably the gear that simmed the best.
Well, it's nothing though, right? Because you didn't need to do anything up until a certain point to establish a baseline, right? It's just, and really the hardest part about the numbers was the colors. People only paid attention to the colors.
Yeah.
Right.
If you weren't decked out in purples, you were garbage.
Which is crazy
like
to
if
me.
you were blue, you were blue, you weren't being invited.
Yeah.
Right. You had to be closer to purple than anything else when that number changed that color. It was such a terrible, terrible thing as far as like the inclusion of the community and stuff like that goes.
The culture was definitely not ideal. Yeah.
But if WoW didn't incorporate it, it was still going to be there regardless, unless they found some way to ban
it was
those
always
add-ons.
there, and they always knew that the item level was behind the scenes driving the actual the level of stats on gear and stuff like that, which but there was no reason for us to know about that, right? It didn't have to be that way, because at one point, I remember one point I was gauging the quality of the weapon or whatever beyond just the epic rare, right? Was the DPS. You just look at the DPS to see where it sits on the spectrum of weapon. You know what I mean? Usability or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
I remember doing that in vanilla. So people are always going to guesstimate their way there, but as soon as you start exposing that thing, I think it created more problems than it solved.
Yeah.
Even for gear score's sake.
And that's it's kind of the whole thing with, they allow these add-ons, right? They allow these things to be exposed and stuff like that. So you can hook into it. And it's I think that's kind of part of, if they just got rid of all the add-ons and built in the majority, they finally put in the ability to update your HUD, right? So that kind of knocks away a lot of the move add-ons. If they were just to incorporate a lot of that stuff into the game itself, somehow put in a DBM thing that you could use to just show timers, boss timers kind of thing. Because a lot of people use that, and stuff like that, and it's almost like you need it. But if they could just do something like that.
Half of that shit is probably the complexity behind actually driving a better design for the players, right? Because if you need a cooldown, if you need to see a measurement of a cooldown, well, turn it into a visual somehow, right? Have it be something that the players can feel is going to happen, right? There should be some level of, and I don't mean to get too far into that specific thing. That's not what I intended to do, but generally speaking, for them to dish out content at that level, that's probably the trade-off they take. And then they lean on the add-ons, right? Even though they probably wouldn't admit it, maybe, I don't know. But they probably lean on add-ons more than they need to solve some of those problems, right? And so they can keep dishing out content. But I'd still argue that, I don't know, the head's in the wrong place type of thing.
Yeah.
So, but again, I don't, if you're making money, why change the recipe?
Yeah, I guess that's the problem, right?
Yeah, I don't know. We should make our own WoW with blackjack and hookers.
Blackjack and hookers.
If we just made
Grand Theft Auto.
If we made a text, we can make a text-based one. We could probably do everything except
You want to build a
graphics.
mud? You want to
Oh
build
my
a
God,
mud?
a mud. Ah.
So I saw something the other day. Somebody was able to hit level 70 without leaving the boat
In
for Exile's Reach.
It's funny.
You know how you saw? Mm-hmm.
That's funny.
They said it takes 200 days.
How?
Oh, this is great. So there's account-wide
Pet battles.
pet battle quests that you can do on other characters and then turn them in on any character. So you do them on a character outside, then you log on to the character that's on the boat and you turn them in. And so they get the XP.
How insanely unaccomplished that is.
It,
I hope
takes-
that poor person just didn't have, I hope they look back and like,
they were the
it's great that I can prove that this happens, but
well,
man, what a waste of
their,
time.
their claim
Well,
to fame too is they
but
were the
they-
second neutral panda to hit max level.
But they didn't really waste any time because they did it on other characters
Right.
and then they just turned them in on that. It's not like they sat there grinding it.
Yeah,
They
you can only do
just
5
turned
a
in
day.
those quests and that was it. You know?
They have a list of
Wow.
the ones that are good to do it and are easy to do with a certain pet.
Oh, yeah.
It's like 5 minutes to do the pet quests, and then you just switch and do it, and then you just go and do your other things.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like a set and forget kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it
So,
takes
Wow.
200 real world days to do it. 200 resets.
it's funny.
It's ridiculous.
I mean,
Kudos.
that's kind of interesting. Like that people
Sure, it's a proof of
think
concept
of
type
that.
thing.
Yeah.
You know, and
Like,
it's
oh, hey, I wonder, they're testing they have a hypothesis. I wonder if I could do this. And then they're testing it. So it's, you
yeah,
know.
I think they had already done it up to 60 and stuff like that. And then when Exile's Reach went live, they probably did it kind of thing.
Hmm.
But like, it's like, yay, it does nothing.
One thing I will say that I don't know if they fixed it or not, but what is super annoying is the fact that once you accept one of those account-bound quests, you can't get rid of it. It stays in your stupid quest log. I don't know. They may have fixed that, but that was so annoying
I think they
because
did. I think they did fix it.
because my quest log is always full. And I'm like, oh, I'm not going to go do these right now. I have other things to do. And then
Yeah.
they would stay in my quest log for
The same
months
one
or
set in
years.
mine for years.
Yes. Yes. And I'm like, great.
Yeah.
You know,
That's
it's
funny.
just taking up spot, you know? Yeah.
Yeah. They put in the ability to get more sparks of ingenuity. Basically, they just come in different content in Dragon Isles now. You can get them off of rares. You can get them from dungeons and raids.
Oh, so like
You
what
can-
we were talking about with, world drops.
Well, yeah, but
Essentially.
so this is the stuff that you had like the first 5 weeks of the quest.
Yeah.
So now like that was kind of they were kind of constricting what you could make in the beginning and all that stuff. So now it's going to be, you can get them from Dirt and Treasures. In World Quest, I think, can drop them, so you can get that and make more gear, which is good because now I can start getting transmogs and maybe level up some shit. You still need the Primal Chaos, but you can swap that around. That's a pretty good thing. On the 14th, the Valor Cap and Cross Realm Mythic
That's right. Get
stuff
removed.
is gonna be the Valor Cap is Valor and Honor, or whatever the currencies are going to be. Valor and Conquest will be uncapped on the 14th. So, they had said at some point that they kind of wanted people to not feel left behind, which is why the cap existed, so that way people couldn't just completely grind and get super far ahead in the Mythic Plus scene. And then, or people that came in late didn't feel compelled to have to grind a lot to get the Valor and all that stuff. It was, I guess it's a way to extend it, and it's also a way to prevent burnout and that kind of stuff. And so at this point, it's been out sufficiently long enough to where, like, it's not, they don't consider that to be an issue. And I don't think that that's wrong to constrain it, because it wasn't like it was a very minimum set. It started at a certain amount per week and it increased every week and all that stuff. And for the time being, you could never get more overall than whatever, but you could still farm it. Like if you only did the max per week, you know, you could still get more and stuff like that and save it up or spend it or whatever. So, yeah, there's a lot of, there's also a lot of 10.0.7 stuff that's going around, new gems and stuff like that. I haven't really looked at that because I kind of want to wait before I really look at that. So maybe we'll talk about that next week, whatnot. But I don't know. I think it's been kind of a quiet week. We downed a new boss. We downed Grim Totem. We talk about that.
I'm very interested to see if we are able to repeat that this week.
Well, what we're gonna do is we're going to extend, but we're not.
We gonna?
What we'll do is we have somebody in the guild that has the skip, so we can kill the first boss and then go to Broodkeeper, do some work on Broodkeeper, and then go back and do some bosses.
Oh, okay.
So that way, one, it prevents a loot lockout for me. Not that I need the loot, but there is potentially stuff in there that I could get. I guess with the new loot system, it doesn't matter because it's not like
everybody likes to get loot. You don't want to be locked out. Whether or not you need it, it's still, you can always trade it to somebody who, or not roll on it or whatever, if it's not something that, or if it's something that's an upgrade for people. So yeah, I understand. People like to get loot. That's a valid reason for playing the game.
Yeah.
People like to get loot. There's nothing wrong with that. I know people get like, oh my God. If it's excessive, yes, maybe there's a problem. But loot is definitely a driving factor for why people do stuff. I mean, some people play for the challenge. Some people play for the loot. You know, and it's either way is equally acceptable. You know, one isn't inherently better than the other, you know.
We lost Brian again.
That's okay.
Oh, poor Brian. He's having Discord issues.
Aw.
But yeah,
Welcome back.
You back?
He's like, nope.
Oh,
F this.
I missed the Brian.
Aw.
I don't know. I think it's this camera. I switched back to my work camera, and I'm pretty sure that it was killing stuff before.
Oh.
So yeah, I'm not going to turn it back on.
Okay. Oh, that's okay. We were getting ready to wrap up anyway. You know, thank you guys for listening to us discuss things. It's been fun. You can, check us out at facebook.com/server-restart-in. You can always send us a tweet at server_restart, and then we'll catch you guys next week. Bye.
Bye.